What's going on, YouTube? Welcome back to Fireside Rangers. I'm your host, Eric Wilson. Today, joined by my co-host, Will Cohen. Today, we are back in the month of November to carry on with our coverage of the 2023 to 24 New York Rangers season. Last episode, we did a whole recap of the month of October, so be sure to go check that out. But just like the Rangers are moving forward, so are we. The Rangers are back in action tomorrow night at home for the first time in 5 games, where they'll take on their divisional rivals, the Carolina Hurricanes. And we're here today to discuss 3 keys for the Rangers to pull off that victory and extend their current win streak to 6 games straight. But before we really get into things, make sure you like, subscribe, ring that bell so you don't miss a notification. If you're listening on Apple Music or Spotify, be sure to give us a 5-star review. And be sure to follow all of our socials at Fireside Rangers on Instagram and X. And I guess we'll really just get on into things. Will, how are you doing today, and how are you feeling about this game tomorrow night against Carolina?
I'm excited. I'm looking forward to it. Last year, the Rangers were 3-1 versus Carolina, and I think they scored 5 or more goals, and I think it was all 3 of those games actually. Oh no, maybe I don't know. Maybe it was a little less than that. Maybe it was twice, and then once they scored less than that. But they played Carolina well, dating back to the 2021 playoffs. So I'm excited to see how they come out tomorrow against them. I know Carolina did add Michael Bunting, and he's adding some much needed offense to that team. But I'm pretty excited, and I'm pretty confident in that game tomorrow.
Yeah, I mean, confidence is key. The Rangers are riding a little bit of a hot streak at the moment. That for the first time in their franchise history, the Rangers did perfect a road trip of at least 5 games or more. Rangers went 5-0 across the Western Conference just over the last week and a half or so. And the Rangers will be looking to continue this hot stretch of elite play back at home against Carolina. And that is the first key that I want to discuss, is the fact that the Rangers haven't been at home in a really long time. They've played phenomenally on the road. But how can the Rangers continue this momentum and carry it back into Madison Square Garden? So, Will, I just start us off, break down what being back at home means and what the Rangers can do to really carry that momentum moving forward.
Well, it means they have the fans. And the Rangers, we know that they play well in front of their fans, but the crowd noise, the fans got to get into it. And when they get into it, and and the Rangers just feed off that crowd noise. They feed off the crowd. They love playing at home. And I think after a long 5-game road trip, it's going to be much needed for them playing at home. So I think they'll be happy. They can't get too comfortable. They got to just keep rolling. I feel like it was against the Canucks. They kind of got a little too comfortable. I mean, they still won that game, but they did get a little too comfortable. They got to ride the hot momentum and the crowd noise of the fans, and they'll be fine.
Yeah. And I think it's interesting to note, you look back at last season, I don't have the Rangers record pulled up in front of me, but I do know that it was very slim, but the Rangers did play better on the road last year than they did at home, which is pretty interesting to note. And you look at just this season so far, the Rangers haven't had that many home games. So there isn't really much of like a sample size just yet, but the way the Rangers have been performing on the road, I wouldn't be shocked if that were to happen again. And, just Will, you watched last season. You've seen all the games this year, or most of them, I should say. But how are you feeling about the difference of the way the Rangers play between home and being on the road?
I mean, I'm not too different about it. During the 2021 playoffs, they were very bad on the road. I think they only won 1 game on the road, and that was Game 7 against Carolina. No, they won 2 games. They won Game 6 against Pittsburgh and Game 7 against Carolina. So them being good on the road is great, because let's say they are a 3rd seed again, they'll be playing a lot of those games on the road in the playoffs. So you like to see how they stack up obviously on the road. And if they play good on the road, it means going into the playoffs. I know we're a long ways away from that, but if they play well on the road in the regular season, going into the playoffs, that'll be huge for them.
It would be huge. And the Rangers are very good at playing on the road. Hopefully, we'll see some more action of them being good at home tomorrow night against Carolina. But I do want to move into the second key for the Rangers to defeat the Hurricanes. And I think it's the kids. Alexi Lafreniere, Capo Caco, Philip Hedl, they've all moved up into the top 6. And we've done a lot of coverage on them so far this season. But I think one thing that we've failed to talk about a lot is that they've kind of slowed down a little bit. Lafreniere scored in the season opener. He's gotten a couple other goals since then. Philip Hedl has a bunch of assists, but he hasn't recorded a point or a goal in a couple of games. And Kako still is only at 2 points. So it kind of seems like the kids had a really great start. And then you just look at even though the Rangers have been winning, the most recent stretch of like 2 or 3 games, the kids haven't really been putting up points. And I think when you look at a team like Carolina, who's just so filled with offensive threats, you're going to need as many players on your team scoring to counteract that as possible. So, Will, just when it comes to the kids, how important is it that they get back into the saddle and start scoring goals?
I think it's pretty big for the Rangers. They have obviously guys like Mika are scoring now, Panarin and Kreider, but once you add Kako, Lafreniere, Hedl, you're getting a lot more scoring than just from those 3 guys, and obviously Adam Fox missed him as well. But I think, even though they haven't scored in the last 2 games. Yeah, 2 games. I still think that they're making the right plays. I know that again, it was against the Canucks. I know Lafreniere missed a wide open net on the breakaway, and then Capo Caco did the same thing as Lafreniere did, and I feel like sometimes they might be getting a little unlucky. Caco, I think for him, I think Mika Zibanejad getting going and getting hot is going to help Caco because you've already seen him feed Mika a bunch of times and Mika just miss the net or it's just saved. But now that he's heating up, a lot more pucks are going to be behind the net. But as for Hedl and Lafreniere, even though they're not putting up points, I still think they're playing great. But them getting on the score sheet tomorrow night is going to be huge for the Rangers, and obviously going forward with the season.
Yeah, no, you're absolutely right. I think it would be huge. And even outside of tomorrow night's game, you look at the overall season as a whole. The kids started out kind of hot and now they've slowed down a little bit. Again, it's kind of the same thing that like we always talk about. Like, yes, it is still very, very early on in the year to be making any like crazy judgment calls, but does it worry you at all that the kids might seem to be a little inconsistent to start the year? Do you think this will be a problem that happens throughout the entire season, or do you think it's just a little bit of a slump for the kids and then they'll get over it and just be consistently producing points for the remainder of the year?
It worries me a little bit because it was kind of last year they were very inconsistent. Hedl would have a 6-game point streak or a 7-game point streak, and then he'd go weeks without scoring. Lafreniere the same way, Kako the same way as well. But I think the last couple games of the road trip, the Rangers were taking a lot of penalties, and there were a lot of penalties going the Rangers' way as well. And I think obviously Kako's not on the PK. Lafreniere's not on the PK, and Hedl's not on the PK. So when they take penalties, it's taking away from their ice time. They're not getting as much ice time, and I think that also contributed to them not scoring a lot on this road trip. Well, in the latter half of it. But yeah, it does worry me a little bit because, as I said, last year they were very inconsistent. But it is early in the season, and I think once the Rangers stop taking sloppy penalties, which I hope they do because that sucks, that can't happen later on in the season. We'll see them consistently get on the score sheet.
Yeah, and I'm happy that you did bring up the amount of penalties the Rangers have been taking because although it isn't one of the 3 keys that we're discussing today, if we were doing 4 keys, it would certainly be one. The Rangers have been taking a lot of pretty dumb avoidable penalties so far, and it's been costing us not even that many goals because our penalty kill has come through. But against a team like Carolina, if you give them too many power play chances, they're going to capitalize on at least a handful of them. But yeah, the kids hopefully will get a little bit more playing time because of a lack of penalty taking by the Rangers. And hopefully we'll see all 3 of them get on the score sheet because the Rangers are like 22-0-2 when all 3 of the kids hop on the score sheet. It's a pretty incredible stat line right there. But I want to head into the final point, the final key to how the Rangers can beat Carolina. And I think it is the most important one. It's Igor Shesterkin and him going back to God mode that he's been in for pretty much his entire career. Because I've said it a couple times recently, where when you look at Igor this season, I don't think he's been bad by any means, but I think he hasn't been at that level of perfection that we're so used to as Rangers fans. And when you're playing up against a team like Carolina, who, as I mentioned earlier, has a lot of offensive star power there that very well can score goals and most likely will score goals against the Rangers tomorrow, Igor is really going to need to become like a brick wall in the net. So, he's 3-0 this season. I believe his save percentage is only like a .905 though. Or maybe he's 3-0 on that road streak. Sorry, I'm reading your stat line right there. But my point is 905 save percentage. His goals against is like 2.5 something, like numbers that for any other goalie would be like really solid. But for Igor, we're like, this is a little bit of a down year so far. Now, I'm sure, just like always, it is still early. He'll pick it up. But the question is, can he pick it back up tomorrow? So, I'm going to ask you tomorrow night against the Hurricanes. It's not confirmed that Igor will be playing, but I would assume he is at this point of the season. So how important is it that he puts on like a superstar, world-class level performance against the Hurricanes?
Yeah, I think it's very important for him to have a world-class performance against the Hurricanes. They like to pepper on shots. They're a fast team. They shoot from everywhere. It's literally everywhere. They're shooting from the perimeter, inside the perimeter, everywhere. So Igor has to be on his game. But on the road trip, he was 3-0 with he allowed 6 goals. He made 82 saves. I apologize. He had a 9.34 save percentage and a 1.90 goals against average. So after, a bad 2 starts against Nashville and Columbus, he really picked it up in his last 3 games started. And I think that'll carry over. I think before the road trip, he had a save percentage somewhere in the high, like 0.8s, and now it's a 0.95. So it's going to continue to go up, and his goals against average is going to continue to go down because he's obviously only allowed 6 goals on 88 shots. But I think it's very important for him to be good but not just him, for him to be good, for the defense to be good. The defense has to be ready for the Hurricane speed. And I think as we know, our defense has been very good to start this season.
Yeah, the Rangers defense has been overwhelmingly solid. Just like overall solid is what I was trying to say. Ryan Lindgren's looked amazing. Adam Fox is always. Keandre Miller, I think he's had some significant improvement looking back from the way he played last year. And I think Trouba has really stepped up his game as well. You have the addition of Gustafsson along with Schneider. Both have looked pretty solid there too. So while we do sit here and talk about Igor now, he needs to be perfect. So does the defense. And I'm very happy that you also brought that up. But before we wrap things up here, you look at that defense that the Rangers have, and you look at that offense that Carolina has. Like, what are you looking for from the defense? Do they need to be more offensive minded to join in the scoring? Do they need to play more like defensively, more aggressive? What kind of game are you looking for out of the defense and Shesterkin, and that'll be enough to put us over top on the Hurricanes?
I think they need to jump into the rush a little bit on offense, and they have been doing that this year. But they also need to play the body of Carolina's players. Sorry, they have to push them towards the boards. They got to play them aggressive because Carolina's fast. To match speed, you got to just play their body. You got to hit them, because when Carolina gets hit, they just get very flustered. I noticed that last year when I went to the game, second game they played against Carolina. Anytime the Rangers would hit them, they got very flustered and would take stupid penalties. So you got to play their bodies, but you also got to jump into the rush. I think they need to play they need to play a balanced game. Play good defense, but also jump into the rush, but don't jump into the rush so far where it'll create breakaways for the Carolina Hurricanes with their speed.
You're absolutely right. Again, I think balanced is the number one thing the Rangers need to look for, especially in their defense. But before we wrap things up, Will, do you have any final thoughts for the Rangers heading into tomorrow night's game, just in case they're listening?
I'm looking for Keandre Miller to get on the score sheet, man. He has been playing great this year. He's definitely took a step under Phil Housley. He has a goal, six assists for 7 points in his first 9 games. He looks great. I love that guy. Jacob Trouba, I'm so sorry for everything I said about you last year. You have looked great. And that's all I got to say. Just those 2 players have looked great to start this year.
Well, hopefully they're listening and your message gets across. But to those of you who I know for a fact are listening, Thank you all for watching this episode. Make sure to leave your thoughts on the topic in the comment section down below. What did the Rangers need to do in order to beat Carolina? And we'll be back to provide more Rangers content throughout the remainder of the season. But until then, make sure you guys like, subscribe, ring that bell so you don't miss a notification. If you're watching us on Apple or Spotify, be sure to give us a 5-star review. And be sure to follow all of our socials at Fireside Rangers on both Instagram and X. And until next time, have a good one, and
Let's go Rangers.